Hello, everyone. I'd like to switch gears here and speak about something other than basic Bible doctrines. I'd like to speak to Jehovah's Witnesses for a moment. I believe that Jehovah's Witnesses are the true faith, that they have been used by God. The Watchtower Society has been an instrument of God to restore primitive Christianity and to advance the cause of the kingdom. Now, having said that, that does not mean that the Watchtower Society is infallible by any means. Of course, it never claims to be that, but it has sort of an assumed air of infallibility about it. So I'd like to speak about something that's very important to Jehovah's Witnesses, and that's the 1914 parousia doctrine. As most anyone knows that has any contact with Jehovah's Witnesses believe that Jesus Christ returned in 1914, that he was given his kingdom, and the world has been in the last days ever since then. And World War I, the Spanish Influenza of 1919, and supposedly an increase of earthquakes, various famines throughout the world have fulfilled the sign of Christ. Nation rising against nation, kingdom against kingdom, pestilences, food shortage, and so on. I'm reading here Reasoning from the Scriptures, a publication published by the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society in 1985, 25 years ago. And it's really a minister's handbook to assist Jehovah's Witnesses while they're in the ministry and overcoming objections and the household or conversation stoppers and that sort of thing. But under this topic, the last days, on page 242, if someone says to Jehovah's Witnesses, how do you know that some future generation won't fit the prophecy even better than this one? Well, that's a good question. And the suggested answer by the Watchtower Society says, you might reply, that's an interesting question, and the answer highlights the fact that we are living in the last days. How? Well, part of the sign given by Jesus involves war between nations and kingdoms. But what would happen today if fulfillment of the sign required that we wait until another all-out war were to break out between the superpowers? Such a war would leave few, if any, survivors. So you see, God's purpose that there be survivors indicates that we are now very close to the end of this old system. Well, I don't dispute that we are near the end of this old system. But is it really accurate to say that if there were another war, even between the superpowers using nuclear weapons, that there would be few, if any, survivors? Is that really accurate? Could there be a nuclear exchange? Let's say a limited nuclear exchange? Of course there could be. There's nothing that could rule that out. Is there anything to say that there could not be another pestilence greater than the Spanish Influenza of 1919 that killed, some say 30, 40 million people? There's nothing that prevents that either, is there? How about famines? What if there were to be a global financial collapse, which many feel is imminent? Wouldn't that cause a situation where millions of people could not afford to purchase foodstuffs? This is another suggested reply to that. And it says, matching world events to this prophecy is like matching a fingerprint to its owner. There will not be someone else with the identical print. Likewise, the pattern of events that began in 1914 will not be repeated in some future generation. So again, how do we know that's true? What would rule out another world war? I mean, they've got nuclear weapons now. I mean, they have these humongous weapons that can blow a huge city away. But they've also developed tactical nuclear weapons for use in a battlefield that can blow up smaller targets. And there are also missile shields now that can prevent enemy nuclear weapons from entering into a nation's atmosphere. So this was written 25 years ago. So many things have been developed And the world has changed radically when the Cold War was going on when this was written. As it stands now, the United States has over 900 military bases in the world. And part of their long-term strategy, really British strategy, Anglo-American strategy, is world domination, total world domination. And what has happened in the last few years with the conquest of Iraq and Afghanistan, and now Iran is on the list, they're inch by inch creating a buffer zone around Russia and China. The ultimate goal is to destroy Russia and China, not particularly as a nation, as nations, but to destroy their nuclear capability and to prevent them from dominating the Anglo-American. So that is the long-term strategic outlook. And there's nothing to say that that will not come about. It will definitely change the world. In the 6th chapter of Revelation, where the seals are unsealed, and 1, 2, 3, and the horsemen are let loose, and they take peace from the earth and bring war and famine and pestilence. It says that they are given authority to kill 1/4 of the world. Do you know, if you were to take all the numbers of people that were killed in World War I and in the Spanish Influenza, it added up to about 2% of the world's population back then. And the population has been growing. There were only about 1 billion people in 1914. Now there are now 7 billion people. And people are still dying from war and pestilence and famine, but it's still a relatively small percentage of the world's population. So is the Bible exaggerating? Is it hyperbole that 1/4 of the world's population will be subjected to death when these 4 horsemen are released? Think about it. There's nothing that ruled out. I mean, this supposed identical fingerprint, that's a nice little analogy, but it's not accurate. There could easily be another war, a world war, using nuclear weapons, and there could be famines, pestilences. They have superbugs now they're talking about. And, of course, there's this avian flu that maybe it was overhyped, maybe not. Maybe it'll be another form that will emerge, and maybe the prophecy will be fulfilled in a much more striking, startling way. So, it's great that we've got certain aspects of the truth in mind. We don't believe in, the Trinity and some of those other ridiculous Babylonish ideas, but Jehovah's Witnesses are in for quite a surprise when the authentic presence of Christ begins. And that's what I've been trying to hammer across for some years now, and I just wanted to use a little 10-minute opportunity here on YouTube to reason from the Scriptures, as they say. Thank you for your time.